that buys commercial real estate assets like that we're doing today. And then that fund sends missionaries.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. I'm so glad you're here with us again today. I've got another amazing guest. I've got Zane Schartz on the phone. Zane, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. Zane is the president of Freedom Commercial Real Estate. Freedom focuses on 100% passive cash flowing real estate investments. Freedom manages 70 plus properties and has over 400 active investors. Zane's biggest goal in life is, in my opinion, the most important, and that is to create a nonprofit organization that funds Christian missionaries around the world. That said, Zane, would love for you to kind of let our listening audience know a little bit more about, you, your journey, what you're focused on today, et cetera.
Yeah. So quick version is grew up in Dallas. I grew up playing hockey. That's a big part of my life. Grew up in a Christian household. That's a bigger part of my life. But hockey was something that took me all over the world. I had a lot of awesome experiences. Ended up leading me to Liberty University in Virginia. Played there, played pro for a few years after, played all over the world. That was really fun. But in my time at Liberty, I kind of knew that hockey was going to end at some point, and I had to have a plan for after that. So I started getting internships at different real estate firms in Dallas in the summers. So I worked for a development firm, a brokerage firm, and then a private equity group. And I ended up working for that private equity group for 7 or 8 years. Actually, I was at that private equity group for 5 or 6 years. I've been doing this now for 7 or 8 years, and just learned a lot there. We had a ton of growth, and was fun to be a part of the growth there, and learned kind of the acquisition side, the management side, the portfolio side. And in my time there, we grew from $100 million of assets to $750 million, and then from 3 employees, I was the third employee, to we had 20 plus at the time I left. So it was really fun to be a part of a growing company. And then I left a couple of years ago and started my own thing, and it's been awesome. The Lord's really blessed me and opened a lot of doors, and I've kind of just tried to go through the doors that have been opened. And so yeah, that's how I got to where I'm at today. The very quick version, and I love what I do.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. And before we hit record, I did not know that you have a background in hockey. I do as well, not at the NHL level, but I played hockey growing up. I've got 4 children, 3 boys are active in hockey, and I've actually assisted and coached 35 teams from the ages of 3 years old all the way up to high school. I currently still have two of my sons that are active in the sport. And I always tell people that my schedule looks like a bag of Skittles in the evenings and on the weekends, because you can really find me at various hockey rinks around the state of Minnesota, evenings and weekends. So would love to hear a little bit more about that experience, if you don't mind, kind of your journey into hockey, and kind of, where you kind of ended up.
Yeah. So being from Dallas, hockey wasn't super big. Started playing hockey when I was 9, which is a lot later than most people. But started at 9. Um, and then, like I said, hockey wasn't that big when I was growing up. I moved for the first time to play hockey in Chicago when I was 14. So played it there when I was 14. Then I played in New York for a season. Then I played in Michigan for a season. Then I played in British Columbia for 2 seasons. All 100% for hockey, and just chasing the dream of making it to the NHL and playing college hockey. Um, and the goal was always to play Division I college hockey, and then kind of the next step was hopefully to play in the NHL after that. And I ended up playing junior hockey in the BCHL in British Columbia, which is basically a step between high school and college for those who aren't familiar with it. But I broke my knee my last year, and that really kind of derailed a lot of what I wanted and what I personally was trying to achieve. And, I say I with an emphasis is because, you know, that's what I wanted. But the whole plan along was God's plan was for me to go to Liberty University, which is a very Bible teaching Christian school, and it's club hockey, which is actually pretty crazy. I never anticipated playing club hockey. It's actually funny because when they started recruiting me, they reached out to me and I basically like denied their calls and said, there's no way I'm playing club hockey. Like I've trained my whole life to play this. I had opportunities to play a lot of other places. And I don't say that in a bragging way. I say it more in a way that like God led me to Liberty, which was a big shift in my life where I always say before Liberty, I was a hockey player that just happened to be a Christian. And then my time at Liberty changed me into a Christian that just happened to be a hockey player. So it was really just a shift in my life that pointed me on the trajectory that Jesus is the number one thing in my life and everything else is just a byproduct. But I did play club hockey at Liberty, and then I ended up signing in the ECHL directly from club hockey. I was the first player ever to do that out of club hockey, which was a huge honor. Um, and then, so the ECHL is two levels below the NHL. So double A equivalent. Played there for a couple seasons, and I played in Hungary. Then I played in Finland, and I played in Germany. So it's just been an awesome ride. And now I'm an owner of an ECHL team, which is the league that I played in. So it's kind of cool, full circle. Still love the game, still play very consistently. Um, it's been a big part of my life. It's been a big platform. I think having played high level sports has been a huge asset and benefit to transitioning into real estate. Um, so yeah, that's the hockey journey.
I love that you share your story with me because it's a very similar story that I try to coach, the youth. And that is a lot of times they find their identity in their sport. They find their identity in their performance of the last game or the next game, right? And you, having gone and attended Liberty, really had a transformation occur in your life where now your identity is no longer rooted in your sport, in your game, but it's now rooted in Christ. So I would like to now maybe make a transition over to, Freedom Commercial, your company, and this podcast also shares the same name of Freedom, right? And your company does as well. And freedom means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? We hear about, financial freedom, we hear about time freedom, location freedom, all these different freedoms, right? But I'd love for you to unpack a little bit more about, what inspired you to start Freedom Commercial Real Estate and what does the name Freedom represent?
Yeah, so I'll start with what does the name freedom represent? Represents two things. The first one is we want to help investors on their journey towards financial freedom. We think that financial freedom allows people the ability to do the things that they love and that they're passionate about, help people, um, spend the time doing the things they love. So financial freedom is what we're trying to help from a business and worldly standpoint. And then the second part and the more important part is we believe that true freedom is only found in Jesus and belief in Jesus and the hope that Jesus provides us in this life. And, you know, I want investors to have financial freedom, but I want them even more so to have the freedom that Jesus provides because that has eternal implications as opposed to this life. So um, that's what we're trying to provide, and that's why I did the name. And then kind of what we do at Freedom Commercial Real Estate is we wanted to build. I wanted to build a part of an investor's portfolio that's very low risk, risk mitigated for them, and buys hard commercial real estate assets. So everything we buy is cash flowing from day one. Everything we buy is backed by multi-billion-dollar investment grade tenants, and then we run everything as funds. So an investor has ownership across various different properties, from 10 to 20 different properties in a fund, and that just lowers their risk. Any way we can lower the risk is what we're trying to do, but we're also trying to be competitive on the return standpoint. obviously lower risk typically means lower return, higher risk typically means higher return. And I always tell investors, I'm not trying to be the highest return in your portfolio. I'm trying to be the most consistent and stable and kind of aiming for singles and doubles from a sports standpoint. We're not aiming for home runs or grand slams. I think there's a place for that in an investor's portfolio. I'm all about diversification. So put some money in the low risk stuff, put some money in the high risk, depending on your tolerance for all the above, and kind of do that. So we wanted to build something that was the low risk portion that that is hard assets for investors.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds very prudent to me when you talk about, things like execution risk and, investing in cash flowing, real estate assets and diversification. But I'm curious, what types of assets does Freedom focus on acquiring, and why did you choose that specific strategy?
Yeah. So right now we only do single tenant properties where we own the building and our tenants are investment grade tenants, multi-billion-dollar companies, publicly traded companies paying our rent. So we don't own any strip centers, we don't own any retail shopping centers, no mom and pop nail salons, no franchisees backing our rents, no matter how big they are. We don't do that. Everything is corporate companies with publicly traded companies. So think Starbucks, Dollar General, CVS, AutoZone, Kroger, Verizon, tenants like that, where these are multi-billion-dollar companies paying your rent. So I've been doing this now and running funds like this for 6 or 7 years, and I've never had to contact a tenant to collect rent. They pay like clockwork. They pay automatic, and it's so low risk from a collection standpoint. I've had 100% collections for my whole time doing this. So that's why we wanted to do it. And basically, we know that we're going to receive rent for a set amount of time for the duration of the lease in place. So if it's an 8 year lease with Starbucks for 100K a year, we know for the next 8 years we're going to get $100,000 regardless of what happens. So with that, we put fixed rate debt on every property, and we know our income. We know our biggest expense being debt service, which isn't an expense, but debt service, and then we distribute the rest. So it's very um, consistent. We know what we're getting.
Yeah, it makes sense. It sounds like you're pulling from a pretty good, tenant basis as well. Um, how does Freedom differentiate itself from other private equity groups that are in the similar market?
Yeah, 100% exclusively investment grade tenants. I don't know anybody else who does that. I haven't seen it. It might be out there, but I haven't seen it to date. A lot of people buy retail centers where it might be anchored by an investment grade tenant, and then have a few franchisees or pizza joints or something. Very good businesses, and there's ways to make money on those, and you can manipulate those leases probably easier than you can with a Dollar General type company. But our difference is that we only buy investment grade tenants from publicly traded multi-billion-dollar companies. Like that's our niche, and that's what we're going to stay in. I have brokers send me deals all the time that aren't in that box, and I just say it's a no, and here's why. And it's just that's our first non-starter. Is it's got to be an investment grade tenant. So that's because our end goal in mind is to roll these up and sell them to a publicly traded REIT, because a lot of the REITs out there, like Realty Income Corp or NetStreet, they have high percentages of investment grade tenants, typically in the 60 to 75% range. So if we can build a portfolio of 100% investment grade, they're probably going to like that because it'll bring their weighted average investment grade portfolio up. So that's why we do it. That's our difference.
That makes total sense, Zane. There's a lot of headwinds in the commercial real estate space today, largely centered around the historic increase or run up in interest rates. And we thought that there was going to be a little bit of a relief from the Federal Reserve, but the 10-year Treasury decided it was going to go in the opposite direction as to where the Fed, was signaling, future rates. So what challenges, given that, what challenges do you see in the current commercial real estate market, and how is Freedom adapting to those?
I'd say the challenges in the current market are getting the current cash flows to investors being in that 7 to 8% range that they were back in 2022. 2021, 2022, the spread between the cap rate and the interest rate is not as big as it used to be. Um, so I'd say like that's the current one is just current cash flow. I'd say what we're doing is there's not a lot of buyers out there because it's hard to borrow money. Money is expensive. So we are getting very good deals on properties that I don't think would typically be trading at the prices that we're acquiring them at. For example, we just bought a Starbucks brand new from the developer with 10 years left on the lease for a 6.75 cap. Like you would never see that deal a year or two ago. Those would probably trade for a 5.5 to 5.75. So like just the cap rate um, decompression has been pretty crazy. And our hope is that in this current administration over the next 4 years, there will be interest rate drops and cap rate compression will follow. And with that, the properties that we're buying today at higher cap rates will be worth more in that time. And that's kind of our hope. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but even if that doesn't happen, we still have fixed income, we still have fixed debt, and we'll cash flow at the current rate. So we can weather pretty much any storm. But our hope is that there will be cap rate compression because of interest rate drops. And with that, higher valuations the next 2 years.
I'm Zach Captainstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know there's a lot of others holding their breath for the same or similar outcome. Another one that is oftentimes discussed is the supply absorption. And so I'm curious, in the space that you're in today, how important, is it that you have your finger on, what new supply, coming online, in the particular markets that you operate in, how important is that, metric in determining, what markets you choose to or not choose to expand into?
Yeah, I think absorption in what we do is a little different than like if you think of multifamily space or maybe self storage, because those are typically population driven or like economic driven of microeconomics. For us, it's more, hey, we're looking at let's just use a Dollar General for example. This Dollar General has been here for 25 years. It's in a town of 3,000 people. It's the only grocery store within 25 miles. Like this isn't going anywhere. Groceries are essential. I was literally talking to somebody last night who's from a town in Oklahoma, 500 people, and they were like, "We go to Dollar General all the time. That's our grocery store." And I was like, "There you go. That's a prime example." So the absorption's a little different. We look at on our pre-acquisition criteria, we look at nearest competition. How many times has the tenant renewed their lease? What could this be if it's not a Dollar General? What could this be if it's not a CVS? Repurposability is huge. Traffic counts are big. Strength of real estate is something we look for because our worst case scenario is you know, an AutoZone has 5 years left on their lease, 5 years comes up, they don't renew. That's our worst case scenario. Then the strength of the real estate is what we fall back on. If we can fall back on a good piece of real estate, there's always going to be a good tenant for a good piece of real estate. So that's our fallback. So kind of took a tangent from your answer, but the absorption is a little less important in this than it is for multifamily or storage or other
Other
real
asset
estate.
classes. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So beyond business, I know one of your goals is to help fund Christian missionaries. How does your work in real estate align with that mission?
Yeah. Um, I'd say real ministry takes real money. That's what my friends who work in ministry tell me. So I think I'd start by saying that as a believer, I don't believe that as a Christian, I don't believe that money is really our money. I believe that it is God's money and we've been gifted it. And what we do with that money is kind of a form of worship. So, the Lord loves a cheerful giver, and giving has always been something that I have enjoyed, and it just tugs on my heart, and it's something that I want to do. And I'll give the very quick version, but my heart behind missionaries and funding missionaries around the world started in college when I was at Liberty, and a bunch of friends were going on short-term missions trips, raising $5,000 to go to Africa for a week, and they were just having a hard time raising $5,000, and they wanted to be faithful. They wanted to tell people about the news and hope that changed their lives, and I was just like, what a shame that they are struggling or can't go because they can't get the funding to be faithful and tell people about Jesus. And I was just like, that should never be the case. And I want to be a part of the team and a piece of the puzzle that helps fund missionaries. So my goal in life is to give away $1 billion to fund missionaries around the world. And I want people to tell people about Jesus, and I want to be the piece of the puzzle that that funds and sends. And I'd like to. The long-term vision is to create a nonprofit fund that buys commercial real estate assets like that we're doing today, and then that fund sends missionaries, and the cash flow from that fund is growing and growing and growing, sending, and people are hearing about Jesus because of the business and nonprofit that we're able to build.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate that. There's a international mission organization that my wife and I have supported for a number of years called ELIC, which stands for English Language Institute of China. And I know, full well that there's a lot of missionaries that really struggle, with raising the funds in order to be able to continue, their mission work in really whatever part of the world that they happen to be in. And oftentimes it comes down to the missionaries, really having to, pick up the phone and call people on a regular basis and ask for them, to commit, to funding, their account so that they can continue, their mission work. So it sounds like what you're doing is really kind of removing, that obstacle in a way so that they can focus, on really ministering and building relationships with people in their local parts of the world where they're spreading the gospel.
Yeah, the quicker they can raise the money, the quicker they can be sent. Like I have friends right now who are raising to go to the Philippines, and it's taken them almost a year to raise the money. And it's like they could have left a year ago if somebody could have just wrote them a check. So, yeah.
Yeah, makes total sense. If you could go back, Zane, and give yourself one piece of advice when you were first starting in real estate, okay, what would that be?
I'd say learn as much as I can from as many people as I can, and the more you learn, the more you earn. So I would try to really dive deep into understanding all the different aspects of real estate, whether it be debt structure, whether it be equity, whether it be finding deals, whether it be portfolio management. There's just so many pieces that you can learn, and I learn every day. Like I'm still learning. I hope that I'm better in a year than I am today. I hope that I'm better in 5 years than I am in a year. So, um, uh, as an athlete, I think I'm always striving to be better and improve, and it's just in me to be competitive and be the best version of myself. So, I would tell myself, learn, and grow.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Education is so powerful. I know when I first got into the real estate space, it was really all about having earbuds in my ears, consuming content, blog articles, reading books. Right, the information is largely all out there. Okay, and it's either low cost or no cost. Right. It does certainly take our time. Right, but when you invest in your own education and you trade your time for that education, there's really no limits to what you can do. Would love to hear maybe if there's anything, on your bucket list as we, move to the, middle half of 2025 and beyond. Anything personally, professionally on your bucket list that you'd like to knock off this year?
This year specifically, no, I think my biggest life goal is to give away $1 billion and to help people, help missionaries. I mean, that's kind of a big, hairy goal. But, somebody asked me once, what would you do? What would you ask God for if you knew you couldn't fail? That was my answer. And I know that God can do it. He's the creator of the universe and he can do it. I'd say, like, I guess short term goal is to raise as much money as I can to buy as many properties as I can, just because I love doing that. I love buying deals. It's fun, making the fund as strong as possible and helping people make money is something that I enjoy to do. So that's probably my 2025 business goal.
Love that, Zane. What would be maybe one or two different ways that our listening audience can connect with you to learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I've been pretty active on LinkedIn over the past couple of months, and it's been crazy growth. I really didn't post anything until Christmas Day was my first post. We've had 1 million impressions in less than 2 months. It's been actually pretty wild. So LinkedIn, Zane Schartz, or you can email me, zane@freedomcre.net, or you can visit our website, freedomcre.net. But would love to talk and really meet anybody and just talk about my faith or talk about real estate or both, or hockey.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'll definitely put the links in the show notes for the episode. Zane, really appreciate the value that you brought our listening audience today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It was good talking. If I can just finish with one thing, I always like to finish with, Jesus changed my life. And if you don't know Jesus, I'm not a hard sell, but I would just encourage you to do your research and seek. The Lord says, seek and you will find. Knock and he will answer. So I believe that there is a creator of this universe. I believe that Jesus is our only hope. I believe that Jesus died for all of our sins. And if we believe in him, that, we can spend eternity in the presence of the creator. So, Jesus changed my life, and I'd encourage you to look into that and spend 5 minutes. Go on Google. It's all the information's out there, free or very inexpensive. So that's all I got. But I'm passionate about it because it's the most important thing in my life. So yeah.
Yeah, Zane, and I really appreciate that message. I also appreciate your authenticity and genuineness in how you communicate that and relay that message. And I also encourage our listening audience to follow through. So with that said, listening audience, thank you again for joining another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.